Why is brand building important?
You want to know what it will take for this business to break even.
Need plus action equals value.
You sure? Understand the market that you are operating in.
How do you make sure that you are successful?
And what happens should you preach?
What one thing could we improve?
Start with why.
Come.
Journey with us.
Welcome to the Windhoek Business Banking Masterclass, where business makes sense. My name is Leon Koch, and I'm the Executive for Business Banking, and I'm also acting as the Executive for Retail Banking Services at Windhoek. I've been in the banking industry for just over about 33 years. The last 20 years of my career I've actually spent in business, and I've worked a lot with business clients, and hopefully my insights and my experience dealing with customers will add a lot of value to the topics that we'll be discussing today around some sales techniques, looking at maybe potential channels that you can explore in terms of acquiring new customers, and also in terms of how do you make sure that you are successful in doing your sales. How do you sell anything to anyone? We all salespeople. If you think back when you first dated your girlfriend, you had to sell yourself. You had to sell yourself in getting a job. Obviously, as businesses, you need to sell to your clients. But what it actually means is, without knowing, we are constantly selling. So focusing on sales techniques, I think obviously great salespeople is really the ones that ask better questions, the needs and the pain points of customers. And how you can do it is really by really active listening and really trying to gauge with customers. How do you take that back and to make sure that you reinforce the value, but also in the process also to make sure that you actually do care for customers. People don't buy products, people really do buy solutions. And how do you link a lot of the features from certain product to real life outcomes? For example, let's say you've got an easy wallet product and you've got a list of features that the product actually does. It's really how you enable customers and demonstrate that to them in terms of how they can go about on the go, make payments to customers, effectively managing their finances. Building trust is obviously critical. And how do you build trust, particularly with customers? When you commit to something, communicate effectively, and if you really say you're going to do something, then you need to really do something about it. And if you can't, then you really need to proactively communicate that upfront. In theory, there is also a formula for building trust: consistency, competence, and it speaks to communication. Sometimes people object in terms of solutions that was delivered, and it might feel that you have been rejected. But I think it's an opportunity for you to go back to the customer, be very curious about trying to understand, be open, and really trying to understand, but what is really holding them back? What are the concerns? Sometimes people, they think they've lost the deal, but if you really start follow through, and I think that is the importance of really just go back, re-emphasize, have you really understood what we were trying to sell? It's about going with purpose through to customers when you follow up, and not just following up for the sake of following up. Fortunately, we are sometimes very successful in terms of sales. That's when you started to create some stickiness, and where you start, the moment that you start upselling, cross-sell to those customers and delivering proper good value, that's when you start getting more referrals for more business. How do you identify your ideal customers? And the reason why it's so important to really understand is for you to know exactly how to position your product to them as well. It's important to understand the sectors in which they operate. It's important to understand the industries in which they operate, the life cycles, the value chains of some of those sectors in which they operate. I think it's important to really understand the company size, and the reason why I'm saying company size and the number of employees that they do have is also about, if you really want to determine the lifetime value of that particular customer, the location in terms of how do you going to get your products to them on a consistent basis. If we talk about building trust, consistency, and competence, that's why it's really that important. It's also very important to understand it at what growth stage they are. Are they in the early stages, or are they very much at a maturity stage? Because it ultimately end up in terms of how you're going to deliver to them. What platforms are they using from a technology point of view? The reason being, is there not opportunities for you to really integrate some of your solutions into these systems? How regulated is that particular industry or sector that you are actually selling to? Because I think that can also help you immensely in terms of helping your customer or it can actually be a detractor as well. What are the ages of those people? What are their income brackets? What are their education levels? What roles do they occupy within their business? Are they executive or are they just a worker? What triggers them? What are their lifestyles? What are their interests? What are their hobbies that they are doing? And how do you find that out? Is really to look at your existing base as well. Really trying to understand customers that you've got good relationships, to get some patterns in terms of how people behave in certain classes. If you really want to sell to a wealthy customer and you haven't really been exposed, for example, you haven't maybe tasted the wine that we are drinking, or maybe you haven't traveled that often in a plane. How will you really know what for you might be a wow is for them? It's a norm, it's a standard that you need to deliver. And that's why it's so important really understanding your customers end to end. It depends on who you're selling to, because different channels are much more cheaper and some other channels might be a lot more expensive. I think obviously social media, websites, but I think a critical component is really where you have well-established customers and really trying to see how best you can leverage off some of those referral type of businesses. Partnerships, collaborations, networks amongst businesses. It's very important to go out there, go and meet people, not normally where you want them to be, but you need to really go and understand the market in which you want to operate. And then I think events is also very critical. You need to attend key events, because that's where you really meet and engage a lot of the stakeholders. So how do you measure success? The cost of acquiring customers, or the cost of acquisition. And that really is the cost that you need to incur, the people that you need to put on the ground, the investment that you need to make into products, technology to really get the product out there. And secondly, it's the lifetime value that you will earn from a customer. As long as the lifetime value is much greater than the cost, then I think you will make good profits. So what are some of the key metrics? I think where you had to invest a lot in terms of the product, the payback period is quite critical. Secondly, I think the retention. How do you build stickiness? How do you upsell? How do you really lock customers in for the long run? And also when looking at what are the ideal customer, is really understanding who are the customer that you are selling to from the beginning, that you're not incurring their costs, and the lifetime of that particular customer is of a very short period. And the other thing is really about churn. When you start seeing customers moving away, that is already an indication of potentially, is my product still the right product? Is there a new entrant into the market? Is there other competitors that I need to compete with? Those are some of the critical key metrics that you can look at in terms of whether you are still successful. I hope that some of the insights might be of some value to you. If I can leave you with one key thought, and it all comes down to building trust. And it's really about doing the simple things very well. Thank you for joining us this episode. Please come and join us for the next episode for more expert advice to see how best we can elevate your business. Come journey with us.